everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Beyond Words podcast. I am Manmeet and I have my wonderful co host, Oksana, with me.
So, hello everyone. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. And today is episode number 19, and we are going to explore on how to say no. So recently I've been reading a book by Dr. Gabor Mate, and it's called, in English, it's When the Body Says No. So I have here, this is the German version. But basically what he claims is that when we are unable to say no, at some point our body reacts and actually does the work for us. And the reaction of the body saying no would be like creating diseases. So how about you? Do you have difficulties saying no sometimes, Mamit?
All the time, all the time. I feel like I have a lot of issues while saying no because I'm a people pleaser kind of a person. I used to feel that saying no straight away would be like very rude thing. That was what I used to think, but that was wrong. There are like situations. A recent one was that I was invited to a place, and I'm working on my personal goals of health, and I did not want to have that sugary drink, the welcome drink they serve you in the party. And I could not say no. I thought it would be too rude to the host and say no to that. But we often forget that how much compromise we make, with our own selves.
Yeah, I think this is something very, very important, actually, to not put the needs or wants of others above your own. So basically, your self-respect should never be undermined, right? And that's what happened when you agreed to something out of kindness. I mean, kindness is great, and to be polite is great, but it should not be with the cost of you betraying yourself, right? In this case.
I feel, it's a funny comparison, but I guess, the habit of saying no, it's just like a skill development. I feel it's like the time you start riding a bike when you were little, it seems impossible. It seems difficult. But once you know the way, to ride a bicycle, it becomes easier. So I guess the way, if you start training yourself and start saying no when you actually cannot say yes, or you do not want to say yes, I guess after some time things do become a little better.
So I think if we want to work on saying no, because of course we are all different, and some have more difficulties, others have less difficulties to say no, or I think what we definitely should keep in mind is that if you don't respect your boundaries, if you don't respect your own limits, then not to be able to say no is what creates a lot of stress for you, right? Because it's actually psychologically you should, or it's for your health, for your sanity, it's very important to have a balance of things you have to do and things you want to do. So
I guess it's like self-sabotaging yourself when you just say yes, 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 yes to everything.
Yes. I mean, it's even if we take Jordan Peterson, he also talks about this, how very damaging it is if you're like a people pleaser and you always like, as you said, you sabotage yourself. But above all, it's in the first few times it might not have a very bad effect on you, but if you always like go over the limits of your time and therefore also over the limits of your energy, what is happening then is that you do everything for everybody else, but you don't even have energy then for yourself. And that's like, where is your life then? Like,
yeah, you need to make yourself the first priority, because if you start saying yes to everything and you block your routine, then you end up having no time for your own self.
Yeah, so I think it's actually also like prioritizing. Of course, it's not always prioritizing yourself. I think sometimes it's like that somebody really needs your help and you care about that person, and it's also fine to like prioritize that person in that case. I mean, as a mother, of course, for me this is like, or for other parents, this is something that they absolutely get awareness of, that it's at some point you do prioritize others. The problem is just if there is no balance, like if you only prioritize others, it's also something that can create depression, for example, because if you always do things for others, but then you realize if you need something, they don't do the same, then this is also something that can bring you into existential crisis.
And I feel like if I say no, in long term, I may do a favor on the person who's asking for a specific task. I'll tell you how. So if I take an example of a small business owner and who's looking for opportunities and suddenly gets a lot of orders to work on and says yes to each and every order, though that being a small business, you don't have the capacity. And you end up having so many dissatisfied customers because you cannot give your 100% to that one order. So it's okay to have few satisfied customers than a lot of dissatisfied customers. And you know, like if you say yes when actually you want to say no, then you would do things half-heartedly and it would not produce that kind of result.
Yes, so it's not about quantity, it would be about quality in this case. And when you were talking about like clients, also like the number one rule at my work, for example, is like we help people to do things that they're not able to do alone. So I think one thing you should always also consider when consider if you asked for a favor is like, okay, is it something that I'm gonna help with because the person really can't do it alone, or is it more like, okay, they want to shovel it off to you? So it's also like not a favor to the person if you always take over their tasks. I mean, their personal tasks. It's different if you work in a team, of course, because you're also like taking their freedom a little bit, and also like a little bit the responsibility for their own life. So it's always there are like two sides to the medal. So one thing is you have more time for yourself if you really consider things like, is it like a priority? Is it like urgent? Or is it maybe something that the person should do by their own?
What are the ways of saying no, I guess? If you talk about that a little, I feel first and foremost is to be firm when you're saying no. Stop over justifying yourself, because I've experienced it myself. If the person on the other hand is quite dominant and they will try to push and try to bend you so that you end up saying yes and agreeing on the task. But if I don't justify myself, then I'm not portraying that I'm not sure about my decision. I need to be firm, and I need to have that courage and strength and say no, I don't think so, I can do it.
That's very important. I think if you're absolutely sure you're not going to do it, you should also put it out as being clear to the other person. Absolutely, because otherwise if somebody wants you to do it, they will always find a way to try and talk you into it. So yes, most definitely. And I think also like to protect yourself a little bit, if you know that you have problems directly saying no, or if you know that you normally say yes and then afterwards you regret it, one trick that you can, I think, always apply is just say, okay, listen, I just don't know if I'm gonna have time for that. Let me check your calendar and get back to you. This is something that you can always do, just to postpone the decision, so to speak, or the answer to the question of yes or no, to then like actually think about it. Okay, do I want to do it? And do I have time for it? Am I gonna is it gonna have bad impact on myself? And if you have to say yes to that, then just don't do it.
Yeah, actually, this is such a nice tip. It will give more time to, yourself. It will help you to introspect the situation and basically come up with the correct decision. With this, I guess it also sheds a light that saying no should not and is not like being rude to somebody. You can say it in a very kind way that I would love
Hmm.
to, but I really cannot, like something like that.
Hmm.
So buying time also
Yes,
helps you with that.
I absolutely also see this as a educational problem, that we feel sometimes it's rude to say no. I think it's because of how sometimes we are educated, because it's like, if you just think back as a kid, you're constantly like, you have to do things that, others tell you to. And I think with women, it's the stress of pleasing others is even more so than with men, but this is also cultural, depends, I guess. But yeah, so absolutely should not be out of any kind of well-behaved kid
Yeah.
inside of you that doesn't want to disappoint anyone, because just because you try to please everybody else, you're disappointing yourself. And that's, I think, when I can get back again to the book that I've presented in the beginning. So as I said, what Gabo Matic claims here, and it's actually like many scientists do and doctors, is that, of course, it's also quite rational if you think about it. If you have a certain amount of energy, I mean, like your capacity, also like health wise, and you always are beyond the limits of what you can do. It's even like if you compare it to a marathon runner, right? I mean, the person can only run as far as the body like carries the person. But if you always go an extra mile all the time, what you're doing is you're like draining yourself, your body. And so at some point, like for example, one thing that he explains, like with cancer, for example, it's like, okay, or if you have some autoimmune diseases, and sometimes it's even like you can't even walk anymore, like with ILS, right? But it's like the body's saying, okay, you have done like all you could, like, and now stop it. And if you're not stopping by your own, well, I'm gonna help you stop. And that's when diseases are created, so that we actually have to stop because there's no other way.
Yeah. If we keep saying yes, we keep
Mm,
taking that tension,
mm,
that stress, and it results in like physical disabilities. Not like
yeah,
disabilities. I would like to correct myself, but like chronic illnesses,
yes, of
and
course.
and especially like I have seen like with teenagers specifically,
Mm, mm,
um, they cannot say no because then they have that, oh, my friend circle or my friends won't accept me. If
mm.
everybody is doing something, a nasty thing, they would
Yeah,
also indulge in doing that, even if they know that
yeah.
they do not want to do it.
It's peer pressure, sure, yeah. I
Yes,
mean,
yeah.
hmm.
So it's very important to say no because, in the future it can have consequences.
How can you like expect anyone else to respect you or your boundaries if you don't like put it out into the world? I mean, if you do not prioritize you and your needs and wants, then I'm sorry to give it that straight, nobody will. So
Yeah.
it's very important that you take care of yourself, and that's also something we can, I think, uh, like very warmly advise our audience to do, to always like consider, okay, am I gonna be willing to do that? Do I want it? And can I do it, like time
Yes.
wise and also capacity wise?
Yeah. It's like, to sum it up, stop being a people pleaser, concentrate on yourself, and do say no when you cannot do it or you do not want to do it. Simple as that. And it takes time, but you'll get there.
Yes, that's something that absolutely is, I think, a vital part of growing up too, like, and finding our position in the world. So I think in this case, the audience could definitely, first of all, maybe comment what are their tips and tricks on how to maybe make it easier to say no if we have difficulties saying no, and also like give us some examples, like like in what situations they had a problem to say no, and they were super happy that they did it, how it had a good impact, or maybe when they were not able to and said yes, and then it had like a bad impact, or they regretted it afterwards. It would be fun to hear some stories.
Yes, we would love to know about it. So, as always, if you liked what you saw, do not forget to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the little bell icon so that you get notified the next time we upload a new video. Thank you so much again for tuning in.
Thank you.
Namaste.